Texas fans, Sooner Nation, welcome to episode 125 of the Bevo Podcast, the only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football, the University of Texas and the University of Oklahoma. I'm here with my man, Kevin Miller. I am John Whitson. Kevin, this is the preview episode of the 2024 Texas Longhorns, their inaugural season in the SEC, coming off a historic run to the college football playoff, only to fall agonizingly short to the Washington Huskies. I digress. We are 2024. You've got Michigan on the schedule. You've got Georgia on the schedule. You've got Oklahoma on the schedule. This is a season that will not disappoint and will go down in the history of Texas football as potentially one of the greatest seasons to ever be played on or around the 40 acres. But first, I have to bring up one random piece of information that is nagging at my brain. It's been nagging at my brain since yesterday when I watched Hard Knocks, okay? Just a small, just random bit that if I don't get it out, I will feel unfulfilled as a person. Okay, I'm watching Hard Knocks. By the way, Caleb Williams is pretty good. Like,
stud. Yeah.
And they got the Australian punter, also pretty good. Again, this is one of those deals where you're like, is this team as good as as Hard Knocks makes it out to be? I don't really know. I have no idea. But I'm watching the players like in a group, like a little huddle. And Mercedes Lewis is in the group of players. Do you know when this guy graduated UCLA?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know when he graduated high school. It's bizarre. He's 1 year younger than I am. I'm about to turn 41.
He graduated. I don't know if he graduated or left early. I don't even know. 2006 was his draft class. He's the only player left from the 2006 draft class. I bet that's by a mile. He played against, Oklahoma fan knows he played against Rhett Bomar in 2005.
Unreal.
I'm sorry. I know this has nothing to do with anything, except I saw that and I had to bring it up to you because what in the hell?
How are you still playing football? Football. This is not baseball, even basketball. Football.
I don't.
How is that possible? At a physical position, too.
Will he make the team?
He played last year, I think, for Green Bay as a blocking tight end.
That's unbelievable, dude. He was really good with Jacksonville. He was really good with Jacksonville. He's I don't know. I just couldn't get over the fact that this dude's like our age.
Yeah, he's 18 years or so in the NFL. Makes no sense unless you're a quarterback. Even that's crazy.
And even that's like just,
that's rarefied air to play that long.
We're used to it because we see it with really great players. But the reality is that's shocking.
NFL, rare. It's football. You're not supposed to play that long.
Let's talk about future Mercedes Lewises that might be graduating or playing at the University of Texas right now as we get into the 2024 season. If you've already listened to the companion episode or if you're yet to listen, the way this is going to work is we're going to break down every position group. We're going to get into the weeds. We're going to let people know who and why they need to be watching certain positions, what's going on at those positions, what Texas fans thinking, Oklahoma's fan reaction to that, all sorts of stuff, position by position. And then we're going to break down and predict the 2024 season for the University of Texas in terms of schedule predictions. And without further ado, Kevin, let's start with the running backs. We know about the loss of CJ Baxter. We know that leaves Jaden Blue as kind of the lone returning running back. He had 56 carries last year, 339 yards, 6.1 yards a carry and 2 touchdowns. Is he enough to carry the rock for the University of Texas in 2024?
Well, he's a great player, right? He's just been stuck behind incredible players. He's behind Bijan, behind Roshan, behind Jonathan Brooks last year, and also CJ Baxter last year. So he's a guy who deserves more than what he got last year. He just buried. We're really excited about him. We were really excited about the thunder and lightning potential between CJ Baxter and him. But, CJ Baxter's out. So now he's going to elevate to being the starting guy. Now, he's a guy, I don't really want him having 25 carries a game. I don't think he's built for that.
So who gets the rock if he doesn't get 25 carries a game?
It's a really good question. We've got Trey Wisner. Okay, he's a sophomore out of DeSoto. He's a really good player, was a dynamic special teams player for us as a true freshman last year. Got a few carries, most notably against Texas Tech when we were destroying them last year. Really talented guy, can catch the ball as well. We also have a true freshman, Jarek Gibson. He was at the IMG Academy, right? Along with, we talked about Jaden Jackson earlier. He was at the IMG Academy. Also, I think you guys had David Stone, who was also at the IMG Academy. So Jarek Gibson comes out of IMG. He's a big running back, 210 pounds. Physical guy. So right now they're working him in because the role that he was expected to play is now completely changed due to the injuries, not just to CJ Baxter, but also to fellow true freshman Christian Clark. So we'll see a lot of Jared Gibson as well. I think he's going to do a good job once he gets, the used to the speed of college football.
Is the converted running back from a receiver, Ryan Niblett, expected to contribute at all, or is he kind of in an emergency back situation?
I think it'll be more of an emergency thing, but I think in the first game, they'll probably put him out there just to give him a few carries, just in case we need him, because we all know what's coming week 2. If you don't know, it's the University of Michigan, defending national champions on the road at the Big House. So we're going to need all our guys for that game. So it wouldn't surprise me if he got at least a couple of carries during that game against Colorado State just to get his feet wet a little bit.
Did I read that Texas was still looking into potential graduate transfers at running back? Is that a thing? Is there still a window open for that?
I didn't think so, but if for people to be talking about it, there must be something to this. So I'm assuming if you're a grad transfer, there's nothing holding you from a transfer requirement if you're not on a roster right now. You say you're
so maybe you've graduated and you still have an year of eligibility.
Correct.
You thought maybe. Portal. Okay.
Yeah, maybe you entered the portal from your last school, but you just haven't been picked up. Now, for me, that's a bit of a concern because why would you be in the portal at this point? Well, why aren't you on a team if you want to be on one? Right. So I don't know if they're going to be able to find the type of person that they would want, type of player that they would want in that situation, but leave no stone unturned at this point, right? If there's somebody out there you feel that can help, go for it. I just don't know how lucky you're going to get in finding somebody like that at this point in the season. The season starts in a week.
Okay. The last 2 seasons you had Bijan Robinson, who is just a dynamic, almost historic level quarterback for Texas at a school that has had some running backs. And then you follow that up with Jonathan Brooks, who, if he doesn't get hurt, has a really, 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 really good season.
Yeah, he had a chance to win a Doak Walker Award last year.
Yeah, and still had a good season. So you're coming off, 2022, 2023, really, really good running back production behind what we'll talk about as a very seasoned, effective offensive line. Can Jaden Blue fill the shoes of Brooks and Bijan when he was never expected to be that?
I think he can. I think he's that talented. This guy was very, very highly recruited. Everybody wanted him. It was interesting with him. He did something that I've really never seen before. It was controversial. He got a lot of criticism for it. He sat out his senior year of high school. Okay. Wasn't injured. He just did not play. I don't know if he wanted to preserve his body. So he doesn't have a ton of carries on him. I think he's going to have a really good season. He's got the speed to take it to the house. He's listed at 6 foot, 200 pounds. He's got some size. Again, I just don't want him having 25 carries just because I don't want to wear him out. but
Hands.
he's as talented. Yeah,
Hands.
he can catch it too. Yeah, he can catch it too. So I think he's going to have a really, really good season. Just the role is a little bit different because we expected to see kind of a 1-2 punch. But here's the thing. When you think about Steve Sarkisian, you always talk about, hey, the crazy passing game downfield. But Sark will tell you this. Every year he's been a play caller, he's always had a 1,000-yard rusher. Every season. Going back to when he was at calling plays at USC under Pete Carroll, all the way through Alabama, and so far at Texas. He had a 1,000-yard rusher every year. So running the ball is very important to Steve Sarkisian and to this Texas offense. They're going to find a way to make the most out of this running back room.
Well, here's the thing. Okay. In the first year of the Boomer Bevo podcast was Bijan's last year. Okay. And I was consistent about the lack of utilization of Bijan on Sark's part. He just did not use Bijan enough. So I hear you talk about him getting it. Dude, Bijan was going to get 1,000 yards just by showing up. That's how good that guy was. Okay.
Yeah.
But I thought he was underutilized. I thought Jonathan Brooks was probably properly utilized. I don't know that you had a ton of complaints about his utilization. But this is just different. This was not what was expected. And I think Quinn is projected to be quite a bit better than he even was last year. So maybe you don't need as much out of Jaden Blue. I think it's going to be a very interesting dynamic to watch unfold. I hear you. I think if Jaden Blue gets to 1,000 yards, he's had a very, very good season.
I agree. Yeah, it's a fantastic season if he gets to 1,000 yards. Yeah, and it's unfortunate, right? Most importantly, it's unfortunate for CJ Baxter because he's a kid who's 5-star running back out of Florida, comes all the way to Texas, wins the job outright last year as a true freshman in camp. But, he got banged up in the first game and got passed up by Jonathan Brooks, who ended up being better than any of us thought he would be. So he's coming back this year, working really hard, wins the job again, and then now goes down. Now, it's going to be more of a 1-2 punch this year, but he was going to get the bulk of the carries.
Yeah.
Right? And
he was your starter. He was your starter.
He was a starter.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we'll see, man. The depth is the biggest concern more than the talent at the top.
This is really the theme of Texas. Okay. The theme for Texas this year is the difference between rebuild and reload. Okay. Because I didn't write it down, but we know Jonathan Brooks and CJ Baxter, when he was backing him up, had a lot of production. Sounds like maybe over 1,500 yards of production between the two that now has to be replaced. And can Jaden Blue do it? Likewise, in wide receiver, it's and tight end, it's even more than that. So you lose all 4 of your top receivers: Whittington, Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, Jatavion Sanders. Okay, which, including Jonathan Brooks, who was, I think, might have been number 5, you're losing 3,200 yards of production and 22 touchdown receptions. To put that in perspective, Quinn only had 26 touchdowns total, right? No, 21. Quinn had 21 total touchdowns. And you're losing 22 receiving touchdowns and 3,200 yards in production at the wide receiver position. You're replacing it with Isaiah Bond out of Alabama, Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden, and potentially Ryan Ringo, the true freshman. Do those athletes replace 3,200 yards and 22 touchdowns and receptions?
Man, I think they do. I love our receivers, man. I love these guys.
Listen, dude, that is real quick. I gotta say, listen, that's a bold statement, though, right? I mean, Xavier Worthy is killing it. Whittington, who had a quiet year last year, is killing it. I don't know what A.D. Mitchell's doing.
Oh, he's lighting it up too. Yeah.
Sanders was a stud last year. He's going to be a stud in the NFL. I'm just saying that's a bold statement. So I'm ready to hear how you're making that leap.
Dude, first of all, these guys, we talked about this before. Rebuild versus reload. Reloading. We've got guys who've been on the bench, guys who were talented enough to play last year. Jonte Cook is a 5-star receiver. was a backup last year, right? DeAndre Moore, highly recruited guy out of California, barely saw the field last year. Matthew Golden, talented transfer out of the University of Houston. Ryan Wingo, 5-star freshman. Isaiah Bond, we know what kind of plays that he can make. You saw it against Auburn in their biggest game of the year. Silas Bolden, talented transfer out of Oregon State. He is a guy, he's a small guy, 5'8", but can play all over the field. They'll use him in a ton of ways. I think he'll also be a dynamic returner for us as well. What's going to be interesting to see is how they rotate the guys, who starts, who establishes themselves. Is it going to be a constant rotation of guys coming in and out, or are we going to see after the first couple games who really takes the position and runs with it, and then we just stick with those guys like we did last year? That's what I'm excited to see. But, man, I love the talent, and these guys are just starving to get on the field and make things happen, and I'm excited for it. And you know me, I'm slightly optimistic, but I'm a realist. I'll tell you, right? I picked Texas to barely go above 500 before. I picked them to lose certain games. So I'm not just I don't wear burnt orange glasses, right? I'm a realist. I just really believe in these receivers that we have. I'm concerned about the running backs more because of the lack of depth there and how good CJ Baxter is, but I am really excited about these receivers.
Tight ends. You lost Jatavion Sanders. Dude was a stud. We know that. He was a little banged up against Oklahoma, which Oklahoma fan was very thankful for. And then thankful that he recovered. But are we talking Gunnar Helm? Is that who your starting tight ends would be?
Yeah, we play a lot of two tight end, right? We did it last year with JT Sanders and Gunnar Helm a lot. Sark loves 12 personnel with two tight ends. This year, Gunnar Helm, right, he's been around for a long time. He's going into his senior year. Now, he is not nearly the athlete that JT Sanders is because most guys just aren't. But he's a guy that's a good blocker and a solid receiver. What we're excited about, though, is a transfer we got from Alabama, Amari Niblack. 6'4", 245 pounds, really, really good athlete. Very similar to Jatavion Sanders, maybe even a little bit faster than him, right? Made plays against us, caught a long touchdown pass from Milroe in the Texas versus Alabama game last year. After Saban retired, he transfers to Texas. Again, he missed the spring because of an injury. He had to have a surgery. He's back. I heard he's looking really good. I think he's going to make a big impact. Now, is that going to equal the production of Jatavion Sanders? I don't know. But this guy is a dynamic playmaker, and it's just one more person that defensive coordinators will have to account for.
Speaking of Bond and Niblack, when you think about guys transferring, it's usually because they're not seeing the field or not getting the play in time or not being utilized. You saw that with A.D. Mitchell at Georgia. Didn't feel like he was being utilized. What was the rationale for Bond and Niblack to make this change to go from Alabama, who's still returning Jalen Milroe and is bringing in possibly a more offensive-minded coach? I don't think possibly is bringing in a more offensive-minded coach with Kalen DeBoer. Why did they make the transfer from Oklahoma or from Alabama to Texas?
Yeah, well, I think when it comes to, at least with Bond, right, he's old enough to where he has a relationship with Sark from the recruiting process, right? And I think just the uncertainty there. And I think they may have hit the portal pretty quickly after Saban announced his retirement. They might have been gone before they even announced Kalen DeBoer as being the head coach. And I think they saw Texas on the field. They saw the offense that Sark runs. And look, his offense, it puts guys in the NFL. It just does. It has everywhere he's been, even at Washington. When he took over Washington, they were coming off a 0-12 season, right? He put Jake Locker and Keith Price and, the running backs I can't think about. They had a really good running back that they sent to the NFL too. So I think they saw that, the trajectory that they were on. I want to go to a place that can just help me get to where I want to go to the next level. These guys follow other guys that transferred, right? They saw what A.D. Mitchell did. Coming from Georgia, was a guy who only got a few targets a game, but they are always important. He made big plays in the college football playoff while playing in Georgia. He comes to Texas, completely elevates. Now he's in the NFL, right? I think they saw that.
A.D. Mitchell was Quinn's number one target. Like,
yeah, I mean, look,
as good as Xavier Worthy was.
Close. It was close, but yeah, I mean,
I thought when Malik Murphy took over for those two games that he went back to Xavier Worthy.
Yeah,
in a more concentrated effort to find him. I guess I asked that to say who's going to be his favorite receiver. Is it going to be Bond? Will he be his A.D. Mitchell?
I think something they're different because of their build, right? He's a smaller guy compared to. That's the great thing about Mitchell is his size, right? 6'2.5", 210 pounds, and his leaping ability to just go up and get the. You saw the touchdown that he had in the Sugar Bowl against Washington, right? I think he mistimed his jump, but was just so freakishly athletic. He just hang in the air and still snatched the ball out of the air. We don't have that right now. Ryan Wingo could potentially be that. He's a true freshman. We got to see it, right? But I think Bond is a guy that can be a consistent target for it, and he can be used all over the field. He can play in the slot, and he can play out wide. That's what I love about the receivers that we have this year. We have guys that can move all over the place and be effective.
I got to tell you, to me, this is the key position group, even more so than running back to me, because I think Quinn Ewers, if he has the improvement he had from year 1 to year 2 to year 2 to year 3, he has the potential to be an elite quarterback. I don't know that he's there yet. The statistics don't indicate that he's there yet. But year over year improvement, if it's consistent, he's got the chance, but he's got to have dudes to throw it to. Quinn went 248 completions on 351 attempts, 70% completion percentage, up from like 56 and 22. 3,161 yards, 9 yards per completion. This is my key statistic all summer, only 21 touchdowns against 6 interceptions. Does Quinn, with this receiving core, make the jump from good to great?
I think he does, man. I'm trusting in the entire process, right? I'm trusting in the combination of Quinn and Sark. Sark's development with Quinn's talent. We saw that if we look at it, to go from 57% completion percentage to 70 in 1 year, it's a huge jump.
Yeah,
if he can continue,
it really is. It's a huge jump.
And again, we saw flashes with Quinn as his first year at Texas. But we also saw some moments of like, oh my goodness, like this dude has no business being out there yet. Right? He just really wasn't ready. He was the best option that we had, but he really wasn't ready. Last year, good, right? You never heard me say that Quinn was great last year, but he was really good. What we're hoping now.
He led you to a college football playoff.
Correct.
However, you've said it yourself on this podcast. He missed the throw to A.D. Mitchell on the last play of the game.
Correct. Yeah, he threw it out.
A.D. Mitchell was open.
Yeah, I mean, the back shoulder, whole front of the end zone was open. He threw it to the spot to where, now again, it's A.D. Mitchell, right? So you used to throwing it up to him. But in that situation, he was kind of towards the back pylon. Had he just thrown it kind of short to the front of the end zone, he could adjust and go down and make the catch. He threw it up because you almost always throw it up to him, but it was the one spot where the DB can make a play on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'd like to see a better throw in that situation. But no, I think he does a really good job of protecting the football. He had 6 interceptions last year. That will need to continue, right? I'm looking for him to be more of a leader this year. Now, he's never going to be a rah-rah guy, right? He's not Baker Mayfield or Vince Young even, who's going to be the guy that hypes the team up. He's not. That's not his personality.
Yeah.
Right? But I need him to be the guy, top dog out there on offense, lead these guys. Just give him the football. Sark is going to always have great play calls for him. He's always going to be able to scheme guys into being open. Just get him the football and let him make plays. Because like I said, we got some really talented receivers who are hungry to go out there and make plays, and I'm really excited to see him.
You talked about leaders at the quarterback position. Vince Young, at least in this century, is your all-time best. That's there's no doubt there. What he did in that 05 Rose Bowl, legendary. However, you had another quarterback that took you to the 09 championship game in that same Rose Bowl, right? Did y'all play that in the Rose Bowl again?
It was in the Rose Bowl.
Retire just this past week in Colt McCoy. Does Quinn have a chance to pass Colt McCoy in the lore of Texas football with a good year this year?
You know, that's really interesting. It's kind of like when you, on our OU season preview, you compared Billy Bowman to OU legend Roy Williams.
Correct.
It's always hard for me to do that, right? Because just we were there for that, and we'll be there for this too. But you know, it's tough, man. Because the thing about Colt McCoy is he was the ultimate overachiever. Remember, he was a 3-star guy.
He was a gamer. He was a gamer, man.
He comes in. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's from an OU fan's perspective.
Correct. That's why it's hard. It's hard to compare Quinn Ewers, and I love Quinn Ewers, but this guy, he was a 3-star recruit, Colt McCoy. At the time, we thought we were recruiting him to be Ryan Perillou's backup. For those of you who don't know who Ryan Perilou is, 5-star kid out of Louisiana, committed to Texas. He was supposed to follow Vince Young, right? So we go from this legendary 5-star guy in Vince Young to another one, Ryan Perilou. Right before signing day, he flips and ends up going to LSU. Colt McCoy was already in the class, but like I said, he's just a 3-star kid who was just supposed to be Perillou's backup. And now we're stuck with this Colt McCoy kid as our starting quarterback because Vince Young, after winning the Rose Bowl, decides to go to the NFL, as he should have. And we're terrified. Who is this Colt McCoy kid? He's small, looks like a kid. What's he going to do? And all he does is become a Longhorn legend. And like you said,
beats Oklahoma as a true freshman, right?
3-1 against the Sooners, against Bob Stoops Sooners.
No, that was a better that year he won. That was 06. 607. Was it 06?
He won 06, 8. He won in 6, 8, 9.
Yeah. And you know, it was a better team than you think. Paul Thompson was actually pretty good. I mean, we went 10-2 that year.
Yeah, he won the conference.
Before
Paul Thompson at quarterback.
Before losing on the greatest play of all time in college football, you know, whatever. But it against Boise State. So that was a really good team. Had Adrian Peterson on that team. He's a little hurt.
Yeah.
But dude, listen, here's the deal with Colt McCoy. And then we'll get off. I know this is a season preview, but that's all right. Here's the deal with Colt McCoy. All that dude did was pick up first downs. He just picked up first downs.
Yeah.
When he needed a first down, him and George Shipley got a first down.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable to watch from an OU fan perspective because to your point, he was a 3-star. He was just a dude. And he's just a dude now. When you hear him talk on radio shows.
Physically impressive about him. Yeah.
No.
But
he had
not big.
I know he was a backup.
A cannon arm.
Listen, I know he was a backup in the league, and you know, it is what it is in terms of how his NFL career played out. But as a college player, so anyway, I think it's an interesting comparison in terms of who's going to be remembered because he didn't win a national championship. I think you do win one if he stays healthy. I'm sure every Texas fan feels that way. But Quinn's got you to a playoff. Quinn should maybe, if you would look at the schedule, potentially get you to another playoff. Does Quinn have to win the national championship, though, to pass Colt McCoy? I guess that's what I'm asking.
I think he at least has to play for one. It's just hard
in the final, in the championship game.
Yeah, you gotta make or at least make a run. These playoffs are so different than what we're used to, but you at least got to make a run in the playoffs. The thing is, man, Quinn just has he's a different personality than even Colt.
Yeah,
Colt was soft spoken, but he was a real leader, a real vocal guy out there, especially after his sophomore year.
From a demeanor perspective, to put it in Oklahoma terms, he reminds me of a Landry Jones.
Yeah.
From a demeanor perspective, the way he approaches the game and his teammates is he lets his on-field product speak for him. Landry Jones had way more production, but that could have also been, a factor of just kind of the offense that was being run at the time and things like that.
Yeah, correct. So we'll see, man. I'm looking for a big step up from him, just from a leadership standpoint. Again, not from a vocal leadership, just taking control of the huddle, taking control of things on the field. And now he has to. He has to,
Yeah.
right? Just with the lack of depth at running back. So
So
I'm really fascinated, real quick, just to see how Sark plays this. Right? Is he going to? Hey, we're still going to run the ball a lot out of 12 personnel, like I like to do, because again, Texas is really a running team, despite the guys out there at receiver that they've always had. Or is he going to say, you know what, our best option is to spread the field out, which Quinn is actually more comfortable in, and let him hit those receivers.
let him go to work.
Yeah.
Okay. So the way we've structured this, right, is we've almost gone from biggest question marks, lesser question mark with Quinn. We know what we've got, to the least question mark on the offense and maybe the entire team, which is your offensive line. You're returning Kelvin Banks, the best player on your team. Is that saying too much?
That's very fair to say. Very fair.
The only new starter had significant snaps with Texas last year. He's going to be Cam Williams at right tackle. But unlike Oklahoma, which see that preview, which is just question mark after question mark and transfer after transfer. This is a veteran, cohesive unit returning to the University of Texas. How much does that mean to Quinn and to the fact that there are so many question marks at the skill position?
Well, it's definitely settling. It's settling for sure. It settles down, first of all, us as fans, right? And it has to settle down the rest of the team. It has to settle down Quinn. Hey, at the very least, I feel like I'll be adequately protected to get these guys the football, right? And hopefully we can open up some holes in the running game for these young running backs that we have, besides Jaden Blue, who I fully trust. The other guys are still young. Trey Wisner hasn't had a ton of carries. Jared Gibson is a true freshman. So, yeah, it's really settling. Kelvin Banks, we love this dude. This is a guy who came out as a true freshman, won the job. And like I said, if you look at that game against Alabama, I was terrified. We got Will Anderson coming in and Dallas Turner on the other side. I'm thinking, okay, we're going to have to chip Will Anderson every play. But now we're going to have to block Dallas Turner one-on-one. And the majority of the game, he blocked Will Anderson one-on-one. And Will Anderson, I think he might have had one tackle for loss.
You held him at bay.
I couldn't believe it.
You neutralized him. I don't know that you dominated him, but you neutralized him.
Yeah,
and that was him as a true freshman. We're talking now. He's got one more year, right? He's going to the pros next year.
Correct. This is his last year. Barring something catastrophic.
Now,
this is his last year.
This is a full SEC schedule, but if I'm comparing Oklahoma to Texas, Texas is well positioned to deal with what the SEC is going to throw at them in terms of defensive lines, schemes, blitz packages, whatever the case may be. This is the dream scenario on the offensive side to be entering into the SEC.
Yeah, and like we talked about, kind of like the questions that OU has, it's all based around the offensive line. It's a combination of a young quarterback with a young, inexperienced offensive line as far as playing together goes. It's a bit of the opposite of Texas. Now, I am looking for improvement because we do have experience, but they're not perfect by any means, especially in the interior, right? Left guard, Hayden Connor have some question marks there, right? And also at center, Jake Majors, he's steady. I like him. The right guard, I'm trying to see how that is going to play out too, but I really like our tackles. Cam Williams is a guy who's really talented. Came in, he was actually committed to Oregon and got him to flip late in the process. He was a massive kid. I think he was 370, maybe even 80 pounds. He's gotten down to about 330, 340. Correct. Yeah. Gotten down to about 330 or so now. Looks really good, moves well. He's a guy that, if everything goes right for him, that can leave early for the draft. If it all goes right. He's got the talent to do so. We'll see. Like we talked about with five-star guys, sometimes, or even, I don't know if he was a five-star, but he was a high four-star, highly recruited guy. It takes him a few years, some of them. And he's a guy like that. We're hoping it all clicks for him. And he can have a dominant season and hopefully leave early, go to the NFL, which I love seeing that with Texas guys.
Kevin, let's take a break and give a shout out to our sponsor before we move on to the defensive side of the ball. As always, we're sponsored by Brown O'Haver. Brown O'Haver works for the insured, not the insurance company. If you're a Texas fan or an Oklahoma fan, and you would rather be focusing on football instead of your insurance claim to your home or your business, you want to call Brown O'Haver, 405-735-5510. Stop messing around with the insurance company. It's not going to get better. Whatever problems you or your friends or your family are experiencing right now, you're going to continue to experience with the insurance company. They suck. Call Brown O'Haver, 405-735-5510. Let them work for you, not the insurance company. Stop fighting them. They're terrible. They're horrible. You need to get paid. You need to have an advocate. You need to have somebody that has the experience of the Texas offensive line going to work for you. Call Brown O'Haver, 405-735-5510. Defensive line, Kevin. Again, it's the same story. Outside of the offensive line, it's the same story as the running backs. It's the same story as the receivers. It's about reloading versus rebuilding. You're replacing T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, who are killing it in the league so far in the preseason.
Yeah.
You're bringing back Alfred Collins, 22 total tackles, 12 solo, 2 sacks. Actually, some pretty good numbers. Who else are you bringing back? And do you have any chance at replacing the production and the impact that you had with T'Vondre and Byron?
Let me start with this. I don't think we'll replace the impact that those guys had because it's just rare to have 2 defensive tackles like that. I mean, Texas, the only time I can think of them having that kind of depth or that kind of talent was when they had Shawn Rogers and Casey Hampton in the late 90s and early 2000s.
You're going old school. You're going old school.
Yeah. I mean, that's how rare I feel like it is to have 2 guys like that, you know. But what I really love, I love the depth that we have on this defensive line, right? Again, we talked about this, playing in the SEC, everything is going to be elevated from a physicality standpoint, right? The offensive line are going to be bigger. They're going to be more physical. It's going to be a grinded out type of game. And to get through those games, you got to have guys who can come in and be good while they're in, right? And that's what I feel like we have at the defensive line. We brought in some guys. Bill Norton, transfer out of Arizona. He's 6'6", 335 pounds, right? So here's a guy that we hoping can hold up like T'Vondre Sweat is. I'm not expecting him to be T'Vondre Sweat. He's just a rare player to have out there, T'Vondre Sweat. So, but from a size and physicality standpoint, we're hoping he can help when it comes to stopping the run, right? We're going to have Vernon Broughton as our starter at defensive tackle. He's a senior. He's been around for a while. He's been a little up and down. We're hoping it all kind of clicks and comes together for him this year. Also, a very familiar name, Alfred Collins. Been there forever. This dude is so talented. He's got the talent to be first, second round pick from the defensive line spot. He can play on the outside and on the inside. He's kind of gone back and forth.
Who does Collins? Is Collins more of your big-bodied T'Vondre, or is he more Byron Murphy? Like, who are we comparing?
You know what? It's interesting because he's 6'5". He's listed at 320 now, but he's a really good athlete. So he doesn't play. He's kind of like in between.
Okay.
Because Murphy was about 295 and Sweat's like 350. So he's kind of right in between both of those. He's taller. He's size-wise, height-wise, he's more like Sweat. From a size, he's literally in between Murphy and Sweat. He can rush the passer. He can stop the run. He's just been really inconsistent. That motor kind of has been off and on with him. But I want to say this, though. This is the same thing we were saying about T'Vondre Sweat going into last year. Right? He's a guy that showed some flashes, but he was just always up and down. Did you know anything about T'Vondre Sweat before last year?
That he was an underachiever.
Correct.
That he was an underachiever. That he had not he had not come close entering into last season, reaching his potential. Not one bit.
And then
Byron Murphy was a stud.
Byron Murphy was a stud. Yeah,
he was a stud regardless.
He had that.
But T'Vondre was promise unfulfilled, right?
Yeah, up and down. Just up. You see him. Oh wow, look at that play. Then you forget he's even on the field for the rest of the game. Last year, I mean, he just turned it up to a whole nother level. It's a contract year for him, right? And he balled out and got into this, second round of the draft. And now you see him making plays so far in the preseason in the NFL. We're hopeful that Alfred Collins has this same type of leap just because the talent is there. He's more talented than T'Vondre Sweat is, just from a natural ability standpoint. He really is. So I'm really hopeful that he can get the job done because he's got the talent to do so. And the last thing you want to see is guys not live up to the talent when you have the opportunity to do so.
Okay, framing those guys on the ends. The depth chart that I see has Ethan Burke, a junior on one defensive end, and Baron Sorrell, a senior on the other defensive end. Is that who you're hearing is the starter, or who's going to make a legitimate run at these guys?
This is interesting, right? So, yeah, Ethan Burke, junior, again, talented athlete. We talked about this before, but he was actually a lacrosse player. He played football too, but he was more known as a lacrosse player in high school. He had committed. Did you not know this?
I don't think we've mentioned him as a lacrosse player.
Really?
Okay, this is fascinating.
Yes.
Okay,
Ethan Burke,
give me a little more. Give me a little more lacrosse talk.
Okay,
I'd love
he
to hear
always
this.
played football. He always played football. Westlake High School. You know about Austin Westlake.
Yep.
He played lacrosse and was committed to play lacrosse at Michigan. He was going to play football too, but it was lacrosse that got his attention from the University of Michigan. Correct. He was going to play football and lacrosse at Michigan. Ended up balling out his senior year, got the offer from Texas, ended up flipping to Texas to play football. That's how we got him. He's really coming into his own as a junior, and I expect a big season out of him. Baron Sorrell, a guy who's been around now 4 years. This is 4th year.
Is he your Ethan Downs on the Texas defense?
You know what? That is a
great
comparison.
Where you're wishing, like as an OU fan, we talked about this in the preview, where you're wishing there was somebody better. Like you're like,
you can get a little bit more from him because, yes, last season his sack numbers were down, and it was interesting because I think we all expected a bigger season. I think he had 4 sacks last year, which I think is coincidentally what Ethan Downs had.
Yeah,
and I think the year
right.
He had 5.5, 4.5 for Downs.
I think so.
4,
yeah.
Coming off of 5.5 as a sophomore, so you figured 5.5 as a sophomore he would go up, but the production was down. Everything I hear, he looks great during camp. I hope we see it translate to the field this year because he's got the talent. Now, the interesting thing is, though, I know that from what I'm hearing, they've been using Sorrell and Burke actually on the same side, like kind of rotating in and out.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because of the kid Trey Moore, who they got. Trey Moore is a transfer from UTSA. Now, we talked about this.
Yeah. Y'all were big
UTSA,
on him.
We are. Now, UTSA, it's obviously a step up going from UTSA playing in Conference USA or the American to now playing in the SEC. But this is a guy who's just a dog out there on the edge. 14 sacks last year for the Roadrunners.
That's huge. That's
I don't care what level you're playing at. 14 sacks is 14 sacks.
It's a big number.
It's interesting with him because he's not a guy who he doesn't look like PJ Adebawari does, right? When you just see him first off the bus type of kid. But he's a technician, and he just is always going.
Is he from Texas high school? Is he a Texas high school kid?
Smithson Valley.
Okay.
Yeah, San Antonio, Smithson Valley Rangers. So, yeah, from there to UTSA and now stepping up to Texas. So,
is it a thing where he grew and got better just in college?
Correct.
Is that the deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of just really raw as a high school recruit. Got to UTSA, grew, and just apparently got coached very well and got some great technique down. So, which is great because, again, we were really good up front on the interior, right? Teams couldn't run on us. But the problem is, against our best two of the best opponents we faced last year, Oklahoma and Washington, at least, the 2 most experienced quarterbacks were Dylan Gabriel and Michael Penix. We're talking about 5th and 6th year guys, right?
Yeah.
Against those guys who had really good players around them, in key moments, they were able to avoid the pass rush that they got from Byron Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat and hit guys down the field.
And not pay for it on the edge.
Correct. Yeah, they could sidestep those guys, and there was no edge defender to knock them down. What we're hoping this year is that we have more pressure from the edge. This is going to be a more balanced group. Whereas before, it was just all about the interior. We're hoping now, actually, we'll probably be a little bit more dynamic at the edge than we've been. We also have the freshman Colin Simmons, 5-star guy out of Duncanville, who's just a blur around the edge. I hear he's coming on in camp as well. Again, you never know how much you can rely on true freshmen until they actually get out on the field. But he's a guy that I expect to see on the field in obvious pass rush situations as a true freshman.
Okay, here's the thing. One of your best edge players got repositioned to linebacker with Anthony Hill. He had 67 total tackles, 41 solo, and 5 sacks. But they like him better at linebacker versus off the edge. I find that fascinating because the edge has become such a big-time position in college and pro football. You think about the kid from Penn State that's playing for Dallas right now.
Yeah, Micah Parsons.
You think about Micah Parsons, right? He's to me that was an Anthony Hill-like guy, but they backed him up. They put him in that linebacker position, and consistent with the theme here, you're having to replace Jalen Ford. 101 total tackles, 47 solo, 1 sack, 2 interceptions. That is a big name, a big boy to replace. Who is going to be beside Anthony Hill? And do you have any chance of replacing the production that you lost with Jalen Ford?
Well, Anthony Hill is replacing. They're moving him into Jalen Ford's spot.
Okay. Well, he's a player, dude. Yeah.
Correct. And the thing about it is he didn't know what he was doing last year.
So then the domino falls, and are you replacing Anthony Hill's production, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, well, they hope Colin Simmons can do that.
On the edge. But who replaces him at linebacker?
Anthony, who?
Right, because Jalen Ford leaves, Anthony Hill slides over. So then who's replacing either Anthony Hill or
Anthony Hill was really played. He was more of an edge guy last year. They used him more as a rusher.
Well, but the second half of the season, they used him pretty extensively at linebacker, though.
Yeah. Well, David Bender is going to be the starter next to him. Right. Okay. And David Bender played a lot. I mean, he's a 5th-year guy. He played a lot last year. Had a nice sack on Jalen Milroe in the Alabama game. So he's going to be the guy that lines up next to him. I do have a little bit of concern about the overall depth at linebacker. We love Anthony Hill. We think he's going to be a stud. I'm curious to see how it works with him playing the traditional linebacker spot and not being used off the edge as much as last year because he was so dynamic. But again, we're hoping that those other guys, Trey Moore, Colin Simmons, take away the need for Anthony Hill to be on the edge.
Right.
So besides those two guys, we have Leona Lafau. He's a linebacker out of Hawaii. He'll be in the mix. Also, Morris Blackwell, who's been around for 3 or 4 years. He's a really good coverage linebacker. He's an undersized guy, maybe 5'11" or so, 200 pounds, smaller guy, but one of those guys who can play really well in coverage. So I love the starters that we have. Obviously love Anthony Hill, but the depth around it is a bit of a question mark for me, especially the overall depth as we get deeper into the season. So we'll need some guys to be developing as the season goes on.
Listen, I think Anthony Hill probably your best player on defense. Am I wrong on that?
I wouldn't. No. He's a stud, man. If he takes to this linebacker spot well. Jalen Ford was not dynamic athletically, but he was just so instinctive, man. He was just always in the right spot,
Yeah.
So
and he was a senior. And he was a senior, so he'd seen a lot of ball. He'd seen a lot of ball and kind of knew where to be. He was a really, really, really good player. I don't think Benda, though, he's not an upgrade.
No. Anthony Hill's replacing Ford.
I understand, but the dominoes fall, right? Because Anthony Hill's kind of sliding over to Ford's spot. Now you got to figure out who's placing Anthony Hill would they be outside linebacker? I don't know how their defense is set up, so I don't want to speak out of turn. My point is there's some production that's lost. It's a question mark, and Benda is not your guy. Benda, to me, does not sound like the long-term solution. 5th-year player. Like I have concerns if he's your long-term solution because he's not. Does that make sense?
I mean, no, it wouldn't be. And honestly, if Leona Lafau ended up starting next to Anthony Hill at some point throughout the season,
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. Okay, now the other position that was much maligned coming out of spring ball, you got hit with a little bit of the transfer bug. It was potentially your weakness last year, although they stepped up and played really, really well against Washington, who probably had the best trio of receivers in the country. I don't think probably they did have the best trio of receivers in the country. Was your secondary and your defensive backs. Break that down for us. Who do we expect to see at the corners? I think this is going to be very much a new look secondary for Texas, and I'm interested to get your take.
Yeah, it is definitely going to be a new look secondary for Texas, and I, for one, I thought it was needed. That was a needed change. Look, I love all our guys who have played and put in the work, but I feel like we're upgrading in talent this year. I mean, I think it's a tremendous upgrade in talent and athleticism, right? Against our most experienced teams that we faced last year, we struggled, and there's some coverage busts in key moments, right? Washington, again, we did a pretty good job. It's just Michael Penix was just out of his mind, right? He was just so accurate. But, you look at the last drive against OU, we had a few busts in the second. Obviously, the touchdown to Nick Anderson in the back corner of the end zone, that was a bust, right? It wasn't
It was a bust.
A dynamic route. We just ran to the corner. It was just wide open. We both jumped both of our guys jumped the guy who was in the flat. Again, we're hoping that this upgrade in talent really helps with that. First of all, Malik Muhammad, known as Manny Muhammad to his teammates, we think he's going to be a stud. He was a borderline 5-star guy, pretty much won the starting job as a freshman, and we really, really, really like him.
Safety or corner?
Corner.
Okay.
Corner. He's a physical corner, but he can cover man. Very versatile. He has a chance to be, I think, one of the best corners in the SEC. I don't know if it'll happen this year, but I mean, he's our best corner. And that's, goes without saying. Now, on the other side, it's a bit of a battle going on.
Real quick. I like to compare it because we have a lot of OU fans that listen to this podcast. So I think when you look at OU's corners, you've got Steady Eddie with Woody Washington, and then you've got dynamic playmaker with Gentry Williams, right? Muhammad, more of the Gentry Williams mode in terms of dynamicism, or more Steady Eddie, just really smart football player Woody Washington? It sounds like you're talking about Gentry.
He's kind of a blend of both. Yeah.
Really?
He's a player. Yeah. Like, I'm not concerned about bust with him.
Okay.
Right. Because some guys are boom or bust, right? It's either going to be an interception or a touchdown. Or,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think he's steady, but has playmaking potential. He's also physical to stop the run, too, which I really like. He was a guy that could have gone anywhere. Alabama wanted him.
Okay. Texas fans got a long list of secondary guys, especially in the early 2000s. Who's he remind you of?
Oh, man. Okay, maybe Aaron Williams a little bit. Remember Aaron Williams?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
he was a nice player.
Some size to him. Yeah,
you hope he reminds you of him.
yeah, we'd love that. Just because he's physical, right? I mean, Coach Dwayne Aquino, who was a secondary coach, all those guys had to be physical. You wouldn't get on the field if you wouldn't tackle. He would say, "I don't want that jersey to be clean after a game. I don't care if you're a corner. I mean, you can't be on the field if you're not gonna put your head down and make tackles." So. Yeah, we're looking for a big season from him. Now, the other corner, it's a bit of a question mark because they're just some guys who are competing for the job, right? We brought in the transfer, Javion Cole. He's from San Jose State. Okay. But we also have Gavin Holmes, who was a transfer last year from Wake Forest. He played a little bit and played pretty well when he was out there, but he was just kind of behind some other guys. So I'm looking to see who wins this battle. Also, though, Jahdae Barron, who was our nickel last year and had a really good season, we're hearing that he's been moved out to corner. So there's a very good chance that he actually ends up moving from nickel, playing inside, to being our starting corner next year.
Okay, so he's the person I have written down in your secondary on our lads, which is where we typically go to at least get an idea of the depth chart. He's listed as the star. Is that
the star is a nickel.
That
that's a nickel. Yeah, that's Texas calls a nickel. Correct.
That's our cheetah. That's Oklahoma's cheetah.
Yeah.
Texas's star. Okay.
Correct.
So if he's moving to corner, who we got at safety and who we looking at nickel?
Okay, so the nickel is going to be Jalen Gilbo, who's been around for a couple years. He's just been injured. Okay, he is really, really talented. He seems better suited for it, even better than Barron. He's just a natural at that position. And we're actually really excited about him. He did so good playing nickel in the spring and so far that they felt comfortable moving Barron out to corner to kind of solidify that other corner spot that I just talked about, having the competition with Javion Cole and Gavin Holmes. So if what I'm hearing is correct, we could see Jahdae Barron starting at corner, Manny Muhammad on the other side of corner, Jalen Gilbo starting at the star nickel position.
When we talk about rebuilds and reloads, you seem confident that your offense, biggest question marks running back, but has a chance to be as good as last year, and you expect Quinn to be better.
That's right.
Defensively, as a whole, you were a college football playoff team last year. It's going to be a little different because you're in the SEC, and both schools obviously get that. Do you expect to be as good, not as good, or better than you were last year defensively as a whole?
I think as a whole will be just as good. And the reason I say just as good is because of the defensive tackle production that we'll lose. But I think that'll be offset by better play in the secondary and better production from the edges as far as getting after the quarterback.
Yeah, you were pretty high again. When we were talking about the edges, you were seeing pretty high.
Yeah, now, I am.
Now, we did not mention special teams in our Oklahoma preview because I don't know what Luke Elzinger or what, I don't even know. But you've got a weapon with Bert Auburn.
Correct. I feel really good about him.
He's the most Texas guy on your field, right? With his
Is that a Texas thing? He's just an interesting guy.
Yeah, he's a guy that's easy to hate. You look at Bert Auburn.
Okay, that's what you mean by that.
And as an Oklahoma fan, you just shake your head and you're like, not this guy, right? Anybody?
Yeah, he looks like Carrot Top out there. And he probably cleans up on campus too. You just know it.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not worried about Bert Auburn. I'm not worried about Bert Auburn. Bert Auburn is in a target-rich environment in Austin, Texas. Okay, and he is doing just fine.
Correct.
And listen, dude. It's more out of jealousy than anything else. Yeah. But from a football perspective, and when he walks on the field, OU fans like, son of a, like, seriously, this guy. But dude, he's a dude, long of 54, 82% field goal. This is the kind of stuff that gets overlooked sometimes going into a new conference or whatever. But if you can get this kind of production, it just kind of has to put a little bit of ease with what you're going to have trouble with on the running back side and things like that, right?
Yeah, that's right. He's really steady, really reliable, and has been since he was a true freshman. The question, though, that I have is the punter. And again, it's like, who cares? It's the punter. What matters when your punter is, hitting 20-yard shanks and setting the other team up with really good field position. Right?
Can we count on that? Can we count on that from Texas punter? Can he hit some 20-yard shanks for us?
I have no idea. He's a true freshman.
Where's he out of? Do you know?
He's out of St. Thomas Aquinas. Yeah, he came out of a big-time program in Florida. St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale.
He'll be fine.
It's a big time. But, just...
What's his name?
Hopefully, Michael Kern, Kern.
Yeah, he's going to be fine.
So, we'll see. I hope so. And real quick, I am excited about the returners, too. We're talking about special teams real quick.
Sure.
Silas Bolden, coming over from Oregon State, and Matthew Golden, who comes over from Houston as a returner, especially Matthew Golden with a G as the kickoff returner. And I like Silas Bolden potentially as a punt returner.
Okay. You feel pretty good about it?
I feel really good about them. And I'm hoping we can get an improvement on the return game.
Dude, that seems to be a problem right now. I think it's going to be really interesting because I think it's inevitable that the college game adapts the new rules especially on kickoffs. Oklahoma, I don't know that they've had a kickoff return for a touchdown in a long time, punt returns for touchdowns.
Yeah, I think you have one from what's his name? Who was a kid that's from Heritage Hall that transferred to Oklahoma State?
Gavin Freeman. You're right. He was pretty good on punt returns. You're right. I take that back. But still, I don't know.
Real quick, just a real side note. What do you think about him transferring to Oklahoma State? Does it bother you, or just who cares?
I don't care.
Okay.
Listen, he was a nice story, right? He's a walk-on and all the stuff, and his first touch was a touchdown and all those things. I want bigger and faster and stronger athletes playing.
Yeah.
I want bigger and faster athletes. I don't need the walk-ons.
Yeah, it's a great story, but I mean, again, it's OU, man. A guy like that should not be.
He should not be dependent upon. He should not be a dependent upon part of the offense.
Not at all.
Drake Stoops put himself in that position with production. You didn't see that from Gavin Freeman. It just wasn't there, but they kept trying to make it there. It's like stop. It's like Mean Girls. Stop making fetch happen. Stop making Gavin Freeman happen. Give me some dudes. Okay, offensive player of the year for Texas. Preseason offensive player of the year.
It's got to be Quinn Ewers, man. Just like you said in the OU preview, Jackson Arnold, it's got to be Quinn Ewers.
Defensive player of the year. Is it Hill? It's got to be Hill.
Yeah,
Jr.,
it's got to be Anthony Hill.
I don't think there's I don't know. If one of your defensive linemen, if an Alfred Collins realizes the potential that's there, that's a good story for Texas. That's a good story for Texas.
It's huge.
As of right now, you look at the roster, it's Anthony Hill Jr. and everybody.
Yeah, he's just the most talented guy. I mean, we'll see what Trey Moore can do against the SEC as a rusher. He's got some potential there, but he's a known commodity. Who's
your breakout player? Who's going to kind of come from nowhere? Guy we haven't put a lot of time in. Who's going to be your breakout player?
I mean, I don't know if Alfred Collins will qualify for that, but I'm hoping it's him because he honestly would be a breakout guy if he were to, just because he hasn't so far.
It could be most improved. Breakout could also be most. Yeah, it could also be most improved player. And then the X factor. He's not going to be the best player on the team, but if this guy plays well, Texas is going to have a really good season. X factor.
Okay, that's interesting because there are a few candidates here, but if I'm going to pick one, I'm going to go with Trey Moore because if he can get double-digit sacks against the SEC, it's going to mean that we're going to have some pretty good stuff on defense because not only will that affect field position, but it can force turnovers.
That'd be a pretty cool story to see a kid from UTSA do that in the SEC.
It would be, for sure.
That would be pretty cool. Okay, moment of truth. We're picking the schedule. We are picking the games right here, right now. The University of Texas 2024 inaugural season. You open up August 31st at home against Colorado State as a 35-point favorite. We're not picking the spread, but as a 35-point favorite, my guess is you have a win against Colorado State.
I do have a win. I don't think this game will be easy, at least not initially.
Yeah, you said you didn't like the spread. You said you didn't.
No, I don't. Just because they run an air raid offense. Our defense has shown trouble with those type of offenses so far, so I am expecting improvement, but you never know how week one's going to look.
Okay, so Kevin,
we just have too much depth overall, though.
University. Okay, listen, I picked every one of these, and I've got wins and losses next to every one. Right now, I'm going to be making a pick on the fly against the University of Michigan. You're potentially, as of right now, a 3.5-point favorite at Michigan, defending national champion, but we have no idea. We don't have Jim Harbaugh. We don't have J.J. McCarthy. I mean, maybe they got a running back returning. I don't really know. I'm not.
Donovan Edwards is coming back for them.
Yeah, Donovan Edwards, great player. It's at Michigan. They're going to be up for this game. It's going to be an environment. Kevin, who do you got winning or losing game 2 of the season in a pivotal matchup?
Give you a quick breakdown. We know Michigan's going to be physical no matter who's out there, right? What concerns me about them is their defensive line. I know Texas has a lot of guys coming back, but they've got some studs on their defensive line. I mean, some absolute studs. Also, Will Johnson, the corner. I've been talking about him on this podcast for 2 years.
He could win the Heisman.
True freshman.
He could win the Heisman. He's that kind of level good.
Yeah. So you talk about, Billy Bowman going up for the Thorpe Award. I think this guy will be one of his biggest competitions for that award. He's that good. Man, I'm picking Texas just because of the experience that I think Texas will have on the field compared to Michigan. I felt a lot better about this when CJ Baxter was healthy, but I'm still going with Texas because of the experience factor.
I am spur of the moment. I'm taking a loss.
Okay.
I'm taking a loss. And if this game was being played even in week 4 or 5, where Quinn has had some time to develop a rhythm with his receivers, where their running backs, to your point, have developed a rhythm in the running game, I would feel better about it. But this is an awkward spot for everything you have to reload and rebuild on. You know, you talk about Oklahoma, where for Oklahoma's offensive line, we're getting 3 games. You're getting 1 game against a kind of a weird team in Colorado State. I'm taking a loss. Now, much like we talked about with the Oklahoma preview schedule, you have your right. When we do week by week, things might change. Injuries, how a team looks, that's fine. So, but as far as our prediction goes, I'm doing a loss. A loss to the University of Texas at Michigan. The aforementioned UTSA, the Roadrunners, our hometown team. I've got to win.
Yeah, it's a win. I mean, look, they're going to play hard because Jeff Traylor's a good coach, but the depth just isn't there when you compare the 2 rosters. So,
Louisiana Monroe win.
Yeah.
Mississippi State opening game. Jeff Lebby comes to the 40 acres. You expect some offensive fireworks. I don't know what else you expect from Mississippi State.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting game. I think it's a win for Texas, but it's not. I don't think it's going to be easy because who knows with Levy, and we obviously had trouble with his offense last year. Of course, he did have Dylan Gabriel last year too. But yeah, I have it as a win for Texas. I think, though, that's one of the closer point spreads for Texas really throughout the entire season, at least when it opened.
It's a win.
Yeah.
Mississippi State, so they're not good. Then you have a bye week, and then you make the trek northward to Dallas, Texas, where you face the Oklahoma Sooners. Kevin, you know what I'm picking, but I want to hear what you're picking.
Okay, well, this is a swing game. Every year, you just have no idea what's going to happen 100%. On the field, right? We could have easily won last year, didn't. You guys handled business there in the end. Good win for you guys. But I think we get you back, man. We got to get our revenge after last year. That one stung. So we got to get our revenge. So Texas beats the Oklahoma Sooners this year.
It's a loss. We've already talked about it on the preview show. Check it out.
Right.
OU's just a better program, better team, better culture. I think they're better at everything.
What does better program mean? Is that like historically, like when someone says they're a better program?
Pick a criteria that you want to discuss, and we are better at it than you are. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know if I could say that your program under Venables is better than Texas' program under Sark right now.
What was Sark's record in his second year in the same conference?
8-5.
Yeah, 10-2.
With the easiest schedule in years. Whew.
I'm sorry, I didn't know we were like handicapping the University of Texas now.
Yeah,
so you only win 10 games. You only win 10 games when it's an easy schedule. Is that how Texas works?
No, that's how you guys were.
Oh my gosh, dude. You are listen, dude, this thing is going off the rails. Let's get to listen. We know what's gonna happen. All right. Here's the crazy part. This is SEC football. Okay, so you go to Oklahoma, win or lose, 50-50 game. All jokers, 50-50 game. And then you get the host University of Georgia, who is smarting over being left out of the playoff last year. Still probably going to be the number 1 ranked team. I haven't looked at their schedule just to validate that for sure. They might have to play Alabama before you guys. Do they?
Yes, they do. They have a very tough schedule. And
they got a brutal schedule.
Let me pull up. Just take a second. Hold on. They got – okay, so they open up with Clemson, which would be a tough game. They should win, but it's a tough game. Tennessee Tech, whatever. Kentucky, which Kentucky really plays them very tough.
Yep.
Then they go to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
September 28th. Then they host Auburn the very next week. Again, that's always a tough game for them too. They host Mississippi State the week before playing Texas.
It's a tune up
for sure.
I've got Georgia winning the game.
Okay.
But a lot can happen between then. We can see what they look like against Alabama. a lot of things can factor into that. But as of August 21st, Georgia goes to Texas and wins a close game.
Okay, I can tell you, the matchup for Texas is a decent matchup, as good as they are. I just don't like the fact that it's coming right after the Red River Shootout.
It's tough.
That is
so
tough. Physical, and it's so emotional. Like, both teams play their hardest in that game. We saw it last year, right? I mean, I don't think anybody had anything left. That's why, there's just a lot of respect, despite the fact that we all hate each other. Right?
Correct.
Because the players just did it all in that game. So and it's going to be similar this year because that's just how it goes in this game. So to have to play Georgia the week after that, that's when our depth is really going to come into play. I just don't see it right now. If this was 2 weeks later, I might have a different feeling about this game.
If Vanderbilt and Georgia were switched.
Correct.
If Vanderbilt and Georgia were switched, yeah, that makes sense.
Correct. But it's not. So I have this as a loss for Texas.
And then Vanderbilt's a win. We're not breaking down Vanderbilt. Florida you're hosting Florida. They're in the middle of a brutal schedule, including the University of Texas. Dude, I don't think Texas has any chance of losing this game because I think Napier might be fired by November 9th.
That's the thing. I don't know. First of all, Florida has talent, right? We know they have athletes.
Yeah, they're Florida. They're Florida.
But man, that schedule is so tough. I do think it is a game, though, Texas is going to have to play well to win. It's not going to be one of those ones you can kind of coax through just because they have talent. And with Graham Mertz, they have experience at quarterback.
This is an Iowa State game. This is a Kansas State game. Where if you don't show up, you're
correct. Now, you talked about this real quick. I'm going to go through Florida's schedule really quick. They opened up against Miami.
Yeah.
They play Sanford. Who cares? Then they play Texas A&M. That's going to be tough. They go to Mississippi State. Then they host Central Florida. That's a tough non-conference game for them.
Yeah, because Central Florida will be fired up to play Florida.
Yeah, I don't know why they scheduled that game at all.
Yeah.
Give them respect, but man, then they got to go to Tennessee.
Loss.
They host Kentucky, which is going to be tough.
Loss.
Then they play the game against Georgia, the cocktail party,
Loss.
they call it. Then they come to Austin the week after that.
Loss.
Oh, just so you know, after they play in Austin, they host LSU.
Loss.
They host Ole Miss.
Loss.
Then they go to Florida State. So their last 5 games, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State. What are we
It's unbelievable.
About?
It's unbelievable.
Billy Napier can go 6-6, and I'd be like, great job. Great
Listen,
job,
dude.
man. 6-6.
There have been times when people have talked about SEC schedules, and you really break down the numbers and you realize, is it really that tough? What Oklahoma and Florida, and I think even Georgia and Alabama have are SEC schedules. Like those, because I look at your schedule, we're talking about your schedule. It's not the hard, it's not a
no, it's not. It's not.
Now, Oklahoma and Georgia back to back, it's a 2-game gauntlet for sure. Regardless of what happens, it's going to affect you the rest of the season.
For sure.
Even if you win both games, you could win the battle and lose the war because of what you go through. Loss. Here's the one I had. You got win or loss for Florida?
I have a win for Florida.
I had a really hard time picking the Arkansas game. Arkansas wants to beat. They hate you guys. Like
more than y'all do. I'm telling you,
probably more than us.
It's
probably more than us. It's a weird rivalry. I have a win for Texas, but I thought about it.
Okay, I have a win for Texas as well, and the main reason I have a win for Texas here is that the game is at 11 a.m. If this game was at 7, I'd be really nervous about it. I mean, I'm nervous now. The thing is, too,
I guess the question you got to ask yourself, though, you're using the 11 a.m. kickoff as an advantage for Texas, but is there any possibility where you're not awake a road game at 11 a.m.? I've been to Texas Tech on 11 a.m. road games where Oklahoma is dead asleep.
That's true. That is true. But man, I take our chances with that. Didn't have to deal with Arkansas fan.
A lubed up crowd. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Because we went down there Sark's first year in 2021 and got the crap beat out of us. That is the worst loss of his entire tenure at Texas.
Yeah, it was bad.
Every other loss
because that Arkansas team wasn't very good. They weren't good.
Yeah, they were okay, but yeah, nothing like they should have beat us. I think it was like 40-18 or something like that. It was a beatdown. Absolutely destroyed us. So I like the 11 o'clock kickoff. Just get in there, handle your business, and just get the hell back to Austin and get out of Vietnam, as we call it.
You're hosting Kentucky on the Saturday before Thanksgiving. If you are who you think you are, I have a win here for Kentucky.
You have a win for Kentucky or over Kentucky?
I'm sorry, a win over Kentucky. Okay, Texas beats Kentucky.
Same, yeah.
And then let's face it, this is the game. This is the game everybody wants to see. OU fan wants to see this game. Like this is Texas A&M, Texas is what football's supposed to be on the Saturday following Thanksgiving. Like if there was ever a casualty to conference realignment, it was losing the Texas A&M game, even more so than Oklahoma State. Like this is Texas A&M. I grew up in Texas. I know what this game means. You have to go to Kyle Field. It'll probably be a night game. It will be insanity. There will be swaying. That building's going to be moving. I'm curious to hear what you've got.
Listen, Kyle Field is one of the best venues in all of college football. Even as a Texas fan, I can admit that. Their fans are loud, and they're loud the entire game. They hate Texas. And this has been brewing now. We're talking 13 years since we last played each other. So with the fan base, it's been brewing for a long time. And they are not happy that we're in the SEC. They loved being the only Texas program in the SEC. It's a school whose identity has been right there. Their identity has basically been defined in some ways by Texas. So they felt like they got a chance to build their own identity by going to the SEC. I don't know if I know that they didn't take full advantage of it like they could have.
Well, real quick, they had the potential to capitalize on Johnny Manziel. I mean, That guy, for whatever your thoughts are on him, was a dynamic football player that did some amazing things on the field. They beat Alabama that year. Johnny Manziel went to Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama. And whether it was Kevin Sumlin, who was the coach at the time, or then Jimbo, they just failed to take that momentum and build something from it in a very A&M way, right? They stole despair out of the mouth of success, you know? And do you beat A&M or not?
Yes.
Yes. You know why? Because they're A&M and they suck. Now, listen, Texas sucks too. And I don't know who I hate more. I mean, I hate Texas more, but A&M's just not any good.
And you're annoyed. A&M annoys you more.
They got Mike Elko as their coach. They're terrible. Kevin, if I'm counting it up, I have one loss for you. University of Georgia. That would be correct. I have you at 11-1. I'm at 9-3. Is that what you got?
That is correct.
You'll take 11-1, right?
Oh my goodness!
If you're 11-1. You're at 11-1. You have a potential rematch against Georgia in the SEC championship game.
Yeah, I mean, if they go 11-1, I'm doing cartwheels, man. That would be just a dream season for your first year in the SEC to go 11-1.
You can do it with this schedule. You can do it with this schedule.
I think so, man. And look, they're swing games, right? Just like with OU, there's a fine line between you guys going 10-2 and going 8-4. I've heard some people even have you guys going 7-5 or 6-6. I don't think either one will be a shock because of the schedule when it comes to OU. And the same thing with Texas here. There's some swing games here. OU, obviously. Michigan, for sure, going on the road there. Georgia, I mean, I think Georgia will be definitely favored. But then, the A&M game is going to be tough because that environment is going to be unlike anything that any of our players have played in before. Michigan is going to be loud, but it's not going to be anything.
It won't be A&M.
Yeah,
It will be
you know,
A&M
like
loss.
Michigan doesn't hate. At least I don't think Michigan hates us. I don't think they're still mad about the
Well,
Rose Bowl.
everybody-
from Troy. Everybody hates us, but not like that. It's a different type of hate.
No. A&M they're frothing at the mouth. Like this is
Correct.
They could lose every game and beat y'all, and they would have a successful season.
Oh yeah,
next year.
it was a great year. It was a great year for them.
They wouldn't care. They print T-shirts that said 1-11 if they were able to beat you guys and lose every other game. A&M's they're a joke. Kevin, we're running long. It's fine. Listen, it's a historic season for Texas. Historic season for Oklahoma. This is it deserved every minute we gave it today. Check out if you're checking this one out first. The OU preview is also out. Check it out too. Okay, check it out too. They're both out there. Share with your friends, dude. Listen, it is game week next week, Kevin. We are here. We are at the doorstep of the 2024 season, and I cannot wait. Kevin, have a great rest of your day. Boom.
Welcome.